All right, so we have a game between Spassky and Petrosian.
Here again, we have a match for the world title between Spassky and Petrosian. Spassky won this match, and here he became world champion, you know. So, okay, we have this kind of position, is the so-called one main variation from Tarash, you know, from the opening is called Tarash. So if he took back with the pawn in d5, instead of knight takes d5, e takes d5, the best way to do, I mean, to try something with g3, bishop g2 castle, you know, theory. Better for white, a little bit better, but it's move by move. You have to play very well, you know. Okay, so after knight d5, here you can choose. You can play e4, the most aggressive, or you can play here also very well, e3. You transpose in some other kind of position. You'll see some other game where white played e3, you know. But e4 is theory, you know. Okay, e4 takes in c3, takes in c3, takes. And now bishop b4 check. Okay, bishop d2. He takes. And now bishop c4, the most aggressive line, you see. Bishop c4. Knight c6. What did he play? Castle, no? And now b6. Okay. Now it's clear. White has advantage on the central squares, you know. The idea is to play in one moment d5, you know. And try something tactically, you know, for white with d5. Here you can take back with the bishop or with the pawn. Here in this game, I think Spassky took back with the bishop probably, you know, if I remember well, you know. So after bishop d6, he prepares first rook e1, okay, and now rook c8. Good. Now after rook c8, he played.
So here is the idea to have an Isolani pawn and...
It depends, you know, sometimes it's good to have Isolani. If black has time to block the Isolani pawn, it's okay for black. You know?
It's okay for black.
If he doesn't have time, then it's always very dangerous. I mean, if you, from this kind of position, if you have time enough to push the pawn to d6, then it's almost lost for black, you see. Because in every tactical position, the pawn d6 is fantastic, you know. But black has to try to block it immediately and have some counter attack on the queen side. You know, this is the main line, you know, in both cases. So here he took in d5 and he took back with the bishop. I mean, probably he didn't like to play with Isolani against Petrosian, you know. Petrosian played very well positional play, you know. So I told you, if he has time to block, then black is all right, you know.
So he prefer
okay,
like
now white has a small edge, but it's very unclear because you don't have a free pawn for the moment, you know. The pawn is okay, white has very nice position, but it's nothing is lost here for black, of course, no. So okay, knight a5, and now if he takes in b7, he has very little, maybe nothing, you know, with white. Black defends, you see. So of course he wants to complicate the game. So he gives the chance to take there later on. He plays first, queen c7. Now again, if you take in c7, you have nothing with white, you know. So queen f5. And now he took back. And the idea from Petrosian was to counterattack immediately, you know, trying to show that white doesn't have enough. I mean, has something, but maybe not enough. And he plays very quickly queen c2. Okay, queen c2. And after queen c2, you have to take a decision what to do here with white, you know, because if you take in c2, of course, it's not good. You don't have enough, probably, you know. So, okay, you have to move the queen. You accept to give the pawn from a2 for initiative, I tell you. The pawn d6, the pawn is very important and very dangerous. If you have time to push, d6, d7 is okay. It's very dangerous for black, you know. And now Petrosian plays with fire, you know, here by taking the pawn, you know.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, he tries to show that his defensive is very strong and he can resist in such a position. But the position is already very, very dangerous for black, you know.
Because of this pawn?
Yeah, the pawn is fantastic. You'll see what happens. Of course, he'll push immediately. Okay, now rook d8. Okay, he tries to show that he has time
to block,
you know. Okay, d7.
Wow.
Maximum position for white. Okay, he has the pawn in d7, but in meantime he gave a pawn in a2, and black has, if he arrives somehow in endgame, has a chance because he has two passed pawns, you know, b6 and a7. But he arrives never in
Doesn't have time.
endgame, you know, he doesn't have time. White has to show very quickly how he can try to play for win, you know. Okay, queen f5. It's not very complicated, but you have to show a very nice technique here with white. But okay, Spassky will become world champion. He shows this, this technique. Okay, has a winning position. White has a winning position, and now has to play the best moves. Rook c1 is very important because, as you see, in this position, black has no moves. You have to move the queen only to a6, because on the d file is impossible, on the e file is impossible. All the central squares are controlled by white, you know, d3, d4, d5, you know. e6 also is impossible. So queen a6. And now has time to come in, you know. Rook c7 takes all the squares. He controls also the square from c8 and the square from b7. The position, if he plays well, the next moves is completely winning for white, you see. Okay, b5, the only counter chance, you know. And now, knight d4, again, he comes with tempo, you know. So what to do? What did he play? Queen b6, now, or queen d6. Yeah, okay, queen b6. All right, so now rook c8, very simple, very logical now. Of course, you can't take, no. All right, so now, if you take in d4, you resign immediately, you know. Instead of knight b7, queen takes d4, queen takes d4. Queen takes d4.
D4,
yeah?
sorry.
Now you resign. Rook takes d8, rook takes d8, rook e8 mate.
Oh, okay.
Mate, you see?
Yes.
Mate on the table. So the only move, very sad, of course, but what can he do, you know? Knight b7, okay. The only move. And now knight c6, again. Terrible position. What to do? He resigned here, no? Or what?
Not yet.
He played a little bit.
He played, yes.
Knight d6. And after knight d6, knight takes d5. Also very nice, you see. He gives the queen, okay, in such a position. Knight takes f5, now knight back and resign. Zugzwang, completely Zugzwang. You have queen, but you don't have no moves here. You resign in any position. Now the threat, if nothing else, is to take in f8 and queen d8 check, you know, or rook e8 mate. Of course, you resign. Demonstration, you know. Even by this level, even with Petrosian, we defended, you know, in such a way. I mean, it was almost impossible to beat Petrosian in any kind of position, you know. Look here, was a disaster at the end, you know.
Yeah, this pawn.
The activity of the pieces and the pawn, you know. The pawn, D is terrible, you know. In any case, you know, if you arrive in endgame somehow, see, everybody knows, of course, this is well known. Any endgame is winning for white, for instance, with the central pawns, E or D, wins always, you see. The central pawns win always. The king's endgame, for instance, always winning with the E pawn or D pawn, you know, always. And here we have very nice example. What can happen with the central pawn D when the pawn arrives on D7? You know, terrible, you know.
Nice. Beautiful.
Everything was almost forced. The sacrifice in A2 was correct. It was very good. No? And he has fantastic activity for his piece. And finally, he won a very nice game, you see, Spassky.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gheorghiu.
You're welcome.